Dina places the hand on the body, and now we get a flashback to 1666 where we see what really happened. Here we go. We meet Sarah Fier right off the rip, and yes, same actress who plays Dina. I fucking love this because all the characters in this movie do the same. So Sarah is walking through what they call the Union. Basically, it is what like Shadyside and Sunnyvale used to be way, way, way back in 1666. And while Dina passes characters such as Lizzie here, we hear them say the phrase, "The full moon rises before nightfall." So eventually this is like some sort of code for something. And then we meet Hannah Miller, and we can see that, yes, even back in 1666, Hannah and Sarah still had that spark. Sarah goes to see this guy named Solomon, who she's supposed to marry later on. And Solomon, like, he knows about this whole moon phrase, nightfall thingamajig. And she just plays dumb because she does not want to know what's up, obviously. So later that night, we see Sarah, Hannah, and Lizzie all walking through the night together because apparently they're going to, like, the widow's house for some special berries. And as they're at the widow's house, Sarah finds this book. You might recognize it. And of course, because it's a horror movie, Sarah reads it aloud. The widow shows up and tells the girls that, like, they're in deep trouble because they've awakened the devil because Sarah read from the book, but they're just like, yeah, screw it, whatever, and they just leave. And we quickly cut to the woods where we see that there's a party going on, so that was the code. And Lizzie gives everyone these berries, which turn out to be, like, hallucinogenic. And everyone's having a fun, grand old time when this stupid motherfucker shrimp dick named Caleb comes up and tries to drag Hannah away into the woods. But my girl Sarah shows up and punches him in the face. It's pretty fucking awesome. But then my girl Sarah shows up, punches him in the face, and embarrasses him in front of the whole party by calling him small. Hannah and Sarah then run off into the woods where they actually start to have a bit of a moment. But of course, nothing can go right in a horror movie because they hear a twig snap and they don't see who it is, but they know someone's watching them. So then we cut to the next morning and we see Sarah once again walking through the town, but this time it is a fucked up version of the town that she knew. All the food is rotting, the horses are going wild, and at some point someone pulls her dead dog up out of the well. Suddenly Hannah comes up, grabs Sarah, and pulls her back into her house because something is wrong with her father. And we see that Hannah's father, Pastor Miller, is like catatonic, possessed, whatever you want to call it. And of course, because it was 1666 and no one knew what the fuck was going on back then, the girls assume that they invited the devil into their midst by going out into the woods that night. Now confused as fuck, Sarah runs to Solomon and actually confesses what she and Hannah did in the woods that night. But Solomon, being the good dude that he is, defends Sarah and says, okay, you know what, you weren't doing anything on purpose, sounds like it's just something that happened, you did not invite the devil. But as they are talking, they are interrupted by screaming. And they run to find that Pastor Miller has locked all of the town's children inside the meeting house. After some trying, Solomon and a bunch of the other guys eventually manage to like break down the door, and they go into the meeting house to find that the Pastor Miller has carved out his own eyes and those of all the children in the town. It is fucked up. He is even muttering some like crypto shit. It's terrifying. But it's not done yet, because somehow this dude is still alive, and he sees Sarah and he charges right for her. Fortunately for Sarah, right before the pastor can do anything, Solomon steps forward and kills him. But of course, because the whole town saw this, now everyone turns on Sarah and starts calling her a witch. We later then cut to the meeting house where like all the guys in the town are having a meeting because the women didn't have a say, and we see that Sarah and Hannah are watching through the window. And the meeting is basically an uproar about the party that night. And at some point, it almost seems that the jury is being swayed more towards that, oh, this is just like a weird-ass aftermath from the party. But then this motherfucker Caleb steps up, and because he is so pissed from what Sarah accused him of that night, he straight up says, oh yeah, Sarah and Hannah are both witches, and they made me watch while they were in the woods, which is totally fucking untrue. Fuck you, Caleb. Disrespectively, go to hell. And then, of course, Caleb turns to see that both the girls are watching from outside the window. And now, of course, like this whole ass crap, torches and pitchfork hunt starts going off after the girls. And they fucking manage to catch poor Hannah. Sarah is able to get away, and a little while later, she is able to break back into the meeting house where she sees Hannah all tied up. Hannah tells Sarah that she is actually fucking set to hang because the whole town believes that they're witches, and the town will not listen to them. And Sarah straight up says if it's a witch that they want, it's a witch that they'll get. and she goes back to the widow's house to get the book. But when Sarah gets back to the widow's house, the book is gone and the widow is fucking dead. Unsure of what to do, she rushes to Solomon's house and tells him like, oh yeah, that the widow's dead. There's this creepy ass book. I can't find it now. But then outside, we hear the hunting party come towards Solomon's house because they're looking for Sarah. So Solomon tells Sarah to hide somewhere in the house. And Sarah finds this like secret door hatch thingy. And when she crawls down it, we see a very familiar room. We see that fucking stone room with all the names carved on them, except now there's only one name, and that name is Cyrus Miller. And we also see that the book is down there. And as Sarah figures out what happened, Solomon comes into the room at just the wrong time. And of course, because he's the villain in the story now, he explains the motive. Basically, he says that he killed the widow, stole the book, read incantations, and started this whole fucking curse, the curse we have known, in exchange for power and prosperity. And by the way, Solomon's last name is Good, as in Nick Good. And Solomon is the fucking reason why Shadyside has been getting worse and worse, while his family in Sunnyvale has been getting like higher, more wealth, more power, whatnot. So Sarah takes off running because remember that whole cavern thing has like different tunnels. We learned that from the last movie. And Sarah sees a grate above her at some point that leads up into the meeting house, so she starts to climb the wall. But of course, Solomon shows up and pulls her off the wall. A fight ensues between the two of them, and Solomon straight up fucking cuts Seraphir's hand off. So Seraphir never fucking cut off her own hand. It was Solomon Good who cut off her hand. Somehow Sarah still manages to like stab Solomon, get up the wall, get out the grate, and get out the front doors of the meeting house. But at this point, Solomon is fucking done, and he comes up after Sarah and grabs her, and he yells at the mob, "I caught the witch." And now we have this devastating scene of the crowd dragging Hannah and Sarah to a tree to be hanged. The crowd yells at them to confess, and Sarah does confess. But fucking Sarah, she confesses to being a witch on her own, and she bewitched Hannah. Hannah is not a witch, she says. And because of her confession, the townspeople let Hannah go. And poor Hannah is forced to watch, crying, as Solomon Good gets ready to hang Sarah. And right before he hangs her, Sarah whispers to him, "The truth shall be your curse." And this motherfucking Solomon hangs Sarah from the tree. And this for me is just such a caring part in the movie, because after the crowd just goes away, Sarah's friends hang back and they say, you know what? She does not deserve to be left this way. We're gonna give her a proper burial. And they take Sarah to the woods and they give her proper burial and they bury her there. You guys, I'm sorry, I'm actually fucking tearing up right now. And Sarah's friends take one of these crowns that like the girls have been wearing at that party, and they bury her with it. And when they do, all this moss just like starts to sprout out of like Sarah's grave and kind of just goes everywhere. So that's the moss we've been seeing from the first two movies. And back at the hanging tree, Sarah's friends get the stone and they carve this message into it that says, "The witch forever lives," and they bury that underneath the tree. So that's the rock that the girls had found when they were digging in the second movie. And then Dina is suddenly transported back into 1996, and she now knows exactly what went down. And the group realizes that every single time that one of them had had a vision, it was actually Seraphir trying to communicate with them. And the killers were all sent to them by the Goods because they were close to the truth, and the Goods were afraid of the truth getting out, as Sarah had said to Solomon. So now Dina has figured out the truth, and remember, she is still in the same position as she was, reuniting the hand with the body. Meanwhile, Josh is up on the road outside of the woods keeping lookout. But then, of course, Sheriff Nick Good shows up. However, Dina is able to get to Josh, and they steal Sheriff Good's cop car and start driving away while Dina tells Josh the truth of what she just found out. So the two of them drive to Ziggy's house, but Ziggy is like, "Oh fuck, I called the wrong guy." So our main characters now figure out that they need to kill Sheriff Nick Good to set everything right. And they enlist the help of Marty the janitor, the guy from the first film. Because in the first movie, Marty was actually arrested and Josh slipped him a paperclip, and Marty's like, "Okay, I owe you, bro." So the group goes to the Shadyside Mall, and Ziggy says, "Okay, we're going to set a trap," and basically this trap is that we're going to carry him, as in Carrie, the movie Carrie. So Dina bleeds into a bucket of water, then the rest of the group mixes the water with the blood, and they make like blood trails into the mall stores, kind of like how they did the same thing with Sam in the first movie. And then the group Jimmy rigs those like mall gate door things so they can yank them down when they need to with ropes. And of course, just like they hoped, the killers followed Dina's blood and they come for them. And just as they planned, they lure the killers into the stores in the mall and trap them in there with the door. And then Nick Good shows up and he comes face to face with Ziggy. And we get this great little flashback scene of them looking at each other as kids right before Ziggy pulls a rope and dumps a bucket of Dina's blood on Sheriff Good. And then the group releases the killers and they all go for Nick because of course Nick is covered in Dina's blood. But of course it can't be that easy because it's a horror movie and Nick grabs Ziggy, which gets some of Dina's blood on her. Luckily, we know Ziggy, she's a bad bitch, and she is able to get out of there. She takes off her sweater and she chucks it out there so the killers go after that. Meanwhile, Nick's cowardly ass escapes this whole thing that's happening now, and he runs through the Shadyside Mall and gets down to a grate that leads him to the tunnels. Meanwhile, Dina is like, fuck no, and she runs off to follow Nick. Now, I'm sure you're wondering where Sam was this whole time. Turns out she was tied up in the food court. But then again, Sam is still possessed, writhing strong as fuck, and she breaks out of her bonds and follows Dina down into the tunnel. So now we know, like, oh my god, Dina's fucked. Meanwhile, Dina catches up with Nick and a fight ensues between them, which results in Nick stabbing Dina in the stomach. Meanwhile, the others of the group are still up inside the mall trying to fight these killers. And they have this brilliant idea to take these water guns that they had that were filled with blood and spray them on the killers. Now the killers just go to town on each other. Meanwhile, Sam catches up with Dina and now they start fighting. And thank God, Sam is able to have this moment of clarity when Dina tells her, Sam, it's me, and it's enough time for Dina to push Sam off and run after Nick. And Dina traps Nick in the same room with like that black, gross, beating heart thing. So of course they start fighting again. Meanwhile, back in the mall, the group continues to shoot until they realize that they are out of blood, so they are fucked. And Ruby Lane, the psycho razor killer, attacks Josh and proceeds to break his arm. Now, there were 2 cops that were sent earlier by Sheriff Nick Good, and they were killed by the killer. So Ziggy grabs one of their guns and shoots Ruby Lane with it. Now, of course, we know that this will not kill Ruby Lane whatsoever, but does give Josh enough time to get up and run. Meanwhile, back down in the cavern, Nick puts his hands on Dina's throat and starts to strangle her. And meanwhile, back in the mall, Ziggy goes to shoot the gun again, but she is out of bullets. So now they are really and truly fucked. And now the group in the mall are cornered and helpless as the killers close in around them. Meanwhile, back underground, Dina is still fighting Sheriff Nick Good, and she is able to grab his hand and put it on like that pulsating black gooey thing. And when she does that, Nick gets a flashback and sees all the pain and the suffering his family has caused over the decades. He sees all of the victims, he sees what his ancestors have done, he sees the names being carved onto the stone, he sees everything. And while Nick's distracted by this, Dina stabs him in the eye. Meanwhile, remember, back in the mall, the killers have been closing in on the other part of the group. That is, until they all suddenly burst into swarms of flies. And everyone in the friend group is like, holy shit, she did it. She killed Sheriff Good. Thanks to this, also, Sam is no longer possessed and she is able to catch up to Dina. And I'm sure you're thinking, wait a minute, I thought Dina got stabbed in the stomach. Well, Dina takes off her jacket and she reveals that she had a body armor made of books. So that's why the knife did not affect her at all when Sheriff Good stabbed her. Fuck Dina, we fucking love you. So Dina and Sam walk along the tunnels and they eventually come up inside Sheriff Good's house and they see the whole family tree. And they walk outside just in time to see Mayor Good's car get hit by a garbage truck. And obviously this is in Sunnyvale where nothing bad ever happens, but now of course this just happened and we can kind of tell that bad things are going to start happening. So they've broken the curse, it's done. We now jump to a little bit later and we find out that everyone's starting to kind of like discover that it was a Good family who's responsible for all this crap that's happened in the past however many years. We also see that Dina's friends Kate and Simon are now painted as heroes instead of being painted as like these junkies or drug dealers, whatever you want to call it. And in a very wholesome moment that kind of brings it full circle, we see Ziggy returning Nurse Lane's book to her. Meanwhile, Josh one day sees Marty, who's like selling like all these like big Walkman things out of the trunk of his car. And while he's there, this girl approaches them. And we can tell that Josh is pretty into this girl. And then this girl pulls out a marker, and remember, Josh has a cast on his hand from what happened with Ruby Lane. And the girl says, hit me up on this chat room if you want to talk. And she writes her chat room name on Josh's cast. However, when he looks at the cast, he finds that this is the girl he's been talking to online the whole time. This is like Queen of Darkness, whatever her name is. Now, in a moment we so desperately needed, we see Sam and Dina having a picnic date next to Sarah Fierce's grave. They look super happy together. We can tell that Sam is like kind of back to normal. She doesn't really care about who she is anymore. She's just happy to be with Dina. And the girls put a carving on a rock nearby that says Sarah Fier, the first Shadyside. And then the credits roll, baby. The perfect ending to a trilogy. Or so we think, because we do get a post-credit scene. And we go into the tunnels and we see like this whole crime scene laid out. And mind you, like after everyone had killed the killers, all like that stuff, like the gooey thing and like the names, they had all gone away. And one of the things lying on the ground, marked off with evidence, is the book. And we see a pair of hands come into the frame, grab the book, and take it. And that's really how this trilogy ends. Now, obviously, we did get a fourth Fear Street. However, I'm only going to do it if you guys ask me to do it, because I didn't love it very much when I watched it. So, ask and you shall receive, but otherwise, I'm not going to do it. Also, don't forget to like and tell me what movie I should do next.